You're listening to Potty Mouth Radio, the home of movies, music, television, and comedy.
And now, the hunt for the perfect album.
Hello everybody out there and welcome back to the Hunt for the Perfect Album with Billy and Dave, but not just Billy and Dave because we're joined by a very special guest this week. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the absolutely wonderful Gerald Morris of Two Peas on a Podcast. How you doing, mate?
What is up, fellas? I'm great, man. Even better since you guys asked me to come on here and talk music with you. Thanks for the invite, and I'm doing awesome, man.
That's good. This is going to be good fun. This was your idea, Dave, this countdown from memory.
Yep.
This is a fucking tough one, man.
I know. It seems so good in theory.
And originally we were just doing vocalists, and then we all realized, well, no, let's narrow this down. So male vocalists is the countdown today.
Still not nearly narrow enough.
How did you guys go making this list?
You go first, G.
Well, I was going to ask, am I coming back for the female?
100%. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Because when I was making this list, we hadn't decided if it was going to be, gender based or whatever. So it was almost all females for my list. And I tried to find some kind of balance where it was like they were kind of widely considered in terms of singing, like classically trained and beautiful voice and that kind of thing, but also something that I listen to regularly.
Yep.
Which is not always the case.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting around listening to Pavarotti, for example, but I mean, he's got a great voice, So I tried to find a balance there, and I think I did. I definitely did with the women, but I have a solid 10 or 12 dudes that I feel pretty comfortable with.
We'll be dwelling on honorable mentions, I think, a little at the end.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, I started out going through and going, who do I think are sort of, objectively speaking, the best voices, regardless of genre? And then sort of went, okay, well, which ones do I love and like you said, G, listen to regularly, rather than if I'd come at it with any sort of organized brain, I probably would have picked all my favorite singers first and then ranked them in order of how good their voices are. But I came at it completely the other way around and shortlisted great voices and then went, all right, let's try and get my favorites here. And as it stands now, I've got a top 3 and about 20 honorable mentions that I'm probably going to pick from on the fly.
Yeah, it's about the same for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm
as well. We never double up in these things. So I need a bunch in the back pocket because there's a few of them where, there's 2 that I didn't even bother. They're in the short list, but I know Gerald's going to pick them, so they're not in serious contention because I know they'll get a mention anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm in the same boat as you, G. When I started this list, it was almost all female vocalists. So once we changed it to male, I pretty much just had to come up with an entirely new list, just about. So let's get straight into it then. So for each artist, we'll pick one song to kind of represent, what we think is kind of peak vocalists. So G, why don't you kick us off with your number 5?
All right. Well, looking at like Dave said, if one of mine get taken, then I might be switching this up a little bit. But looking at my 5 that I settled on, 4 of them are like what would be considered like old school. Like they've been around for decades and decades, and early part vinyl records, way before CDs or cassettes or any of that stuff existed.
Yep.
However, for my number 5, I'm going to go with a modern voice that is still making music, offshoots of his original band. He's doing other projects. They're still touring, and he's involved in a lot of other artists that I really love as well. But his voice is it's one of those voices that just crawls under your skin and just stays with you. It's Maynard James Keenan, who is probably
Billy's
most famous.
Yep.
Most famous as the lead singer of Tool, but
course.
He's done a lot of other great things as well. But I've seen this dude live a couple times, and he doesn't have a stage presence, and that is his stage presence.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is, really weird. He's almost like a shadow on stage, but just such a powerful voice that can change octaves at the drop of a dime. And like I said, I think this is probably the only one on my list that like if he raises his octaves, like I get chills. I don't care what the song is. I don't care what he's singing about, just the way he does it in his voice. And like I said, this is the most modern pick that I'm going to throw in there. And I thought maybe a bit of a curveball. I'm not sure if you guys thought of Maynard, but I love him and I love
I love Tool, but I actually didn't consider for my list. What song are you going with, G?
I'm going to pick. It's going to be kind of a cheesy choice, but I think it illustrates kind of what I'm talking about, where he's kind of monotone, and then all of a sudden it's like just so much emotion and rawness that comes out in his voice, and that's Sober from Undertow, which is also one of my favorite like songs from the 90s. I think David probably knows over on Patreon, but when I did my top 100 songs of the 90s, I think it was in my top 5. I love that song, and it's what introduced me to Tool, and essentially what introduced me to Maynard's career. So that's the one I'm going to pick.
Every promise empty, pointing every finger at me, waiting like a stalking butler, who upon the finger rests, murder now the path must wait, just because the sun has come. Jesus wants to fucking wrestle, something with the past is done. Jesus wants to fucking whistle, something with the past is done. Why?
Yeah, that's a nice choice, man. Yeah, love Tool. Yeah.
I need to get around to listening to some Tool.
Oh man, you do. Stinkfist, 46 and 2. So many good tracks. So many good ones.
I mean, the only I could name probably, 3 now. Because you reminded me that there's one called Stinkfist, which I had heard of. I have been told by people, close friends, for 30 years that I should listen to Tool. How can I call myself a
I was going to say,
lover?
as a prog rock guy, I don't know how you can't like Tool. Because
knowing you
and knowing the other stuff that I'm really... And I don't know whether it's subconscious stubbornness that I have never acted on any of this advice to the point where it's now... it's now almost embarrassing.
Right. Well, Dave, why don't you now give us your number?
I just don't know it at all.
Why don't you give us your number 5, Dave?
I would love to, but I can't because I haven't picked it yet. So you go before me.
Okay. All right.
Narrow down from this lot.
All right. Mine, much like G's, my list is kind of a real mix. I've got some old school guys. I've got some new guys. This pick is one of my all-time favorites. I've given you one of his albums on the show already, Dave, quite recently, so listeners haven't heard that yet. He's been going since the mid-90s, and I'm going with Mr. E from the Eels. Mark Oliver Everett is his name. And I just think he has such a unique and interesting voice. He's a really cool and interesting dude. He's the son of a physicist. His entire family basically committed suicide by the time he was like 15. And you can hear so much emotion in his voice at all times. And he's one of those guys that, because he's, really quite indie and often kind of is quite involved in the production of his songs, he's got this really unique style that he always puts on his voice. It's almost like it's doubled up in just about every track he's ever recorded. I'm going with a track from Daisies of the Galaxy called It's a Motherfucker, which is kind of a slow ballad, but this is my pick.
Being here without you, thinking about the good times, thinking about the bad, and I won't ever be the same. It's a motherfucker getting through a Sunday.
Just such a big fan of his voice. He's very stylistically eclectic as well. Like, he's got some really heavy hard rock albums. He's got some and every time you see him live, it's different too. I've seen him twice. Once on his Eels with Strings tour, where he literally had full orchestra behind him. I've seen him on another tour where every song he did, even the soft ones like that, they were like punk rock versions with people playing garbage can lids as percussion and stuff. Just a really interesting dude and a great voice. So that's my number 5.
That track compared to the Mysteries,
Beautiful Blues, yeah.
Blues,
yeah.
which was the only song I knew off that album. But that's really poppy. I think I likened it to Steal My Sunshine by
Yeah,
Them.
yeah, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, really, really varied. All right.
I'm not very familiar. I need to get into the Eels a little bit more. I mean, I know of them, but I don't know a lot of the catalog. So
yeah, nice.
Definitely check out. What was the album you gave me?
Daisies the Galaxy was the one I gave you.
Really good album. I'd never heard them before, and yeah, I dug it. Alrighty, flip a coin. All right, I'm going with this guy. Very, not quite as sad as your guy's tale, but one singer who, as so many did back in the late 60s, died far too early. I'm a huge fan, as Billy knows, of a British singer called Nick Drake. And I'll go with the song Black Eyed Dog, Billy, if you want to find that. Sort of a 60s hippie rock folk type singer. It was basically just him and a guitar. There's no footage of him playing, no video clips, no footage of him playing live. There's only still photos that exist because he was very shy and had a lot of issues with depression and that sort of thing. But produced, to my mind, some of the most beautiful songs of all time. There's only 3 albums, plus a sort of a collection of rarities, but gorgeous stuff.
Growing old and I wanna go home. Growing old and I don't wanna know. I'm growing old and I wanna go home. A black-eyed dog, he called for more.
That's a nice pick. I actually haven't listened to much of Nick Drake at all. That's a beautiful song, though.
Yeah, it's all if you like that, you'll like everything. His style was pretty much that's his style.
Yeah, nice. All right, over to you, G.
Well, speaking of style, there's a couple artists coming up on my list here that I listen to frequently all the time. They're on several of my, Spotify playlists or whatever. And it's funny because this dude is also considered one of the greatest songwriters, kind of like poets, really of all time. Definitely in modern history. But the guy has there's a couple artists that are back to back here where their voice is immediate. Nobody, at least in the popular realm, sounds like them.
Yeah.
When we were talking initially a couple weeks ago, and I'm sitting here thinking of the best singers and trying to do that objective, subjective thing. And I don't know that a lot of people would say that this guy's classically a great singer.
Yeah.
No, I'm pretty confident I know who you're talking about.
Same, yeah.
And I left him off because I thought Billy was going to pick him.
He was high on my list, so yeah.
But I'm talking about Leonard Cohen.
Oh, not who? Okay.
Okay.
I don't know if I don't want to spoil
Exactly
anything.
I mean,
guys are thinking of
same
something.
argument stands. I would have left him off because I would have thought Billy would have picked him. But not the one I thought you were going to say.
So what song are you going with, G?
It may be somebody else. It may be my next one because the other one kind of falls in that category too. But I'm going to go with the song called "You Want It Darker" from Leonard Cohen.
I'm out of the game. If you are the healer, means I'm broken and lame. If thine is the glory, then mine must be the shame. You want it darker. We kill the flame. Magnified, sanctified be thy holy name. Vilified, crucified in the human.
Yeah, that's a nice pick, man.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's just, it's no mystery. I think he died 6 or 7 years ago. It's no mystery, alcohol, smoking.
Yeah.
But he's kind of talking.
Yeah.
He's reading his poetry, but it's over beautifully written music. And it's always extremely profound. And when he comes on my playlist in my car, my wife and kids will be like, "What the fuck are you listening to? Like, what is this?" Like, he's not. You know what I mean? He's not.
Are you about to drive us into a tree, Dad?
You know? Yeah, exactly.
I'm really
So, yeah.
interested, Gerald, because we're pretty much of an age, unlike the spring chicken in the other corner there.
Yeah.
Where did you first come across Leonard Cohen? Do you recall?
Well, it was my dad. My
okay.
dad had vinyl records. A lot of stuff that actually the rest of my list, to be honest with you, my dad introduced me to. And you'll see what I mean.
My parents were probably a bit older than yours, though. I think Dad was in his 40s when I was born, so he introduced me to a lot of stuff, but it was mainly kind of 50s stuff and folk and that sort of thing. I came across Leonard Cohen, and several of my friends at uni had the same story, that they first came across Leonard Cohen from the Christian Slater film Pump Up the Volume, where everybody knows is the theme music that he uses on his. And I remember seeing that movie in 90, whatever it was, and just going, "Oh, damn, I like that song." And then having to go out pre-internet, and it probably took me about a year to work out until the soundtrack released, and then I went, "Oh, I've got to check this Canadian bloke out."
I know, wasn't it a pain in the ass when we didn't have Shazam to look up music for us?
You had to wait for the soundtrack to get released, and then go into a record store and scroll down the back of the vinyl.
Right. Well, and then of course, don't forget Hallelujah too. I mean, one of the all-time great, best songs ever written. Great cover by Jeff Buckley on that tune.
It's an okay cover by Jeff. A very good cover by John Cale. Billy and I've had this idea.
Yeah. All right. Well, my next pick is also one that I was introduced to by my dad, much like you guys with Leonard Cohen. It is, again, someone who you wouldn't think of as having a great voice. I think there's lots of people like that on my list whose songs I love, whose voices are more unique than they are good. One of the few singers that you can well and truly hear their accent when they sing, I'm going with Billy Bragg, who I just love and adore. And I really struggled to think of what song to demonstrate, but I'm going with what I think is the first song of his I ever heard that I really, really love, which is A New England.
I'm 22 now, but I won't be for long. People ask me, when will you grow up to be a man? But all the girls I love in school are already pushing prams. I loved you then as I love you still. Though I put you on a pedestal, they put you on the pill. I don't feel bad about letting you go, I just feel sad about letting you know. I don't want to change the world, I'm not looking for a New England.
I just love his. I think he's a fantastic songwriter. He's got. I mean, I tried to give you Workers' Playtime on the show, Dave, and of course you were like, "Yeah, I know that. That's a perfect album." Like, so yeah, big fan of Billy Bragg.
I know we've got the lag with the. It's so hard not to sing along with that. I'm not looking for New England.
Yeah. You a fan of Billy Bragg, G?
I don't know a lot of that. I don't know a lot of them.
Yeah.
Another one that I'm glad I'm doing this episode, because that's two from you now that I'm like, I know of them, but I just don't know enough of the music. So.
Yeah, nice. All right, Dave, you're number 4.
All right. I can't not have this guy. My next pick is Morton Harkett from the band Aha.
Okay, yeah.
Who I think just technically would probably be in the top 2 best, just technically best voices.
Please tell me we're playing Take On Me.
Yes, but not the single. Go the MTV Unplugged version. And started at about 30 seconds in, so that we actually get to the vocals. But this recording is him at about the age of 60. And I mean, he's still in the Guinness Book of Records for the longest held throat note in history.
Take me home, I'll be gone in a day or two. So needless to say, I'm odds and ends, but that's me, I'm stumbling away.
man, Jesus Christ! I had
Chills, literal chills.
brings a completely different vibe to that song.
That's
I was going to say, it's crazy.
yeah,
it's,
that almost sounds
unbelievable.
Simon and Garfunkel like. That's
it's just amazing. And I saw them in, I think it was 2020 maybe.
Yeah.
Or since then. It was certainly no longer ago than that. And it was the year that he turned 60. And it's like sounds like that. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And he still looks fucking like someone carved him out of raw beauty.
yeah. All right, back to you, G.
Well, I was just saying that version I'd never heard, Dave, before I give my pick. I really love that. I'm actually looking it up right now so I can save the link for it.
There's a few of those MTV Unplugged sessions that I think are I won't mention it because someone's going to bring him up on their list. But one of the very earliest of the MTV Unplugged things that they did is probably my favorite album by that particular artist. There's some real gold in those recordings. Because
it's like when you strip away the pop kind of facade of the 80s, the lyrics really got to shine there. You know?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
If you listen to the pop version, you hear it 100 times a week. It's one of the
you stop hearing the lyrics. A lot of those 80s pop songs when they're the really good ones where the melody and the kind of the music of it is really awesome. The voice just kind of becomes like another instrument almost. You stop listening to the words completely.
Well, let's go old school it was my number 3, right?
Yeah.
So for my number 3, let's go old school, 1960s during the Motown era. Another artist that was introduced to me on vinyl by my parents, my dad. I'm not going to pick this as my song, but I have vivid memories of sitting with my dad on our porch during a rainstorm, listening to "Sitting on the Dock of the Bay" by Otis Redding.
Yeah.
And I mean, what a talent, what a voice, what a songwriter. And just the memories I have of really kind of being introduced to R&B and soul music through Otis Redding's voice, and a couple others that I won't mention in case you guys do. But the song I'm going to pick by Otis is "My Lover's Prayer," which I think really showcases his range as well.
I don't think I know that one, but he was in my short list, but I don't know this song.
This is my lover's prayer. I hope it'll reach out to you, my love. This is my lover's prayer, and I hope you can understand it, my love. My life is such a weary thing, but in my ears, oh, prayer just ring and ring. You keep me wanting, waiting and wishing, when I know deep down I'm not.
That is just such a crack up, man. His voice, it evokes a time and place, even if you weren't alive then. It's one of those magical things. Like, man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I have a few, including Otis singers from that era and that genre. But he was definitely the front runner out of arguably a couple of others who were, quote unquote, more famous or whatever. But he was one of my favorites from that era.
Yeah, nice.
Sure.
To surprise no one, especially not you, Dave, I'm sticking indie for my third choice, and it's a guy. The word band is used loosely here because it's really just one guy, really. Okay. It's Stephen Merritt from the Magnetic Fields, who I've spoken about ad nauseum on this show. And I'm going with what I think is literally one of the greatest songs ever written, The Book of Love from 69 Love Songs.
The book of love is long and boring. No one can lift the damn thing. It's full of charts and facts and figures and instructions ones for dancing, but I love it when you read to me and you can read me anything.
I just think he has such a beautiful voice.
Do you hear Leonard Cohen influence there or no? Or is that just
Yes.
me?
Yeah, totally can. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, the kind of like darker, raspy kind of.
Yes.
And is that the one that has a more famous cover by Peter Gabriel?
Yes, Peter the more famous version of that song is the cover by Peter Gabriel, but this is the original. And
I remember us talking about it.
Man, I love.
I never heard
voice.
that. That was great.
Oh man, you should. I mean, it's a long album. It's literally 69 love songs, but it's one of the best. It's great. All right,
Nailed
Dave.
the title of the album.
yeah. Well, he was actually aiming for 100, and he just got bored and stopped at 69. Is what the legend says. So it's like a 5-disc vinyl. Yeah.
I assumed the title was about the subject matter and didn't refer to the number of tracks.
I know.
All right. My top three, I don't need to and because I picked them very early on. This won't come as a surprise to Billy, but my number 3 is another person who most people would probably not think has a good or beautiful voice, but it's instantly recognizable and iconic. And I'm talking about Mr. Tom Waits.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. Yeah.
The only question is what I pick as an example, because his voice change goes from very beautiful to gargling gravel. Look, we did Rain Dogs on the show, so listeners have kind of heard the beautiful Downtown Train. You know, they've heard his beautiful voice. So I'm going to go with a song called Step Right Up, which is off one of his very earliest albums. And it showcases much more his raspy vaudeville sort of persona.
Everyone's a winner, bargains galore. That's right, you too can be the proud owner. The quality goes in before the name goes on. 1/10 of a dollar, 1/10 of a dollar. We got service after the sale. How about perfume? We got perfume. How about an engagement ring? Some for the little lady, some for the little lady, some for the little lady. $3-4. We got a year-end clearance. We got our white sale and a smoke down.
Yeah, such a unique voice. And when you gave me Rain Dogs, I had no idea that his voice didn't always sound like this.
Yeah, I love that song. It's so theatrical. It's one of his. I mean, we talked about this on the episode about Rain Dogs, but so much of his stuff has a theatricality to it. It feels like an old vaudeville performance.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
All right.
I love the weirdness in his music.
Yes.
The oddity and not being afraid to do that, to be that, which is who he is too. So
yeah.
So for my runner-up, I mean, this was tough. It was between this and another dude that I'll mention later in case it comes up. But I'm going to go with this one. I feel like it's a little more original to me personally, a little bit more of a personal connection. But I'm not going to surprise you guys. Another one that was introduced to me by my folks on vinyl. This is a band. Well, the artist has done other things, but the band that I was introduced to him as the lead singer of is CCR, Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Yeah.
That's John Fogerty. I mean, during the Vietnam War, late 60s into the early 70s, I mean, just such an important niche in the timeline of music history. And I feel like CCR and Fogerty and his voice just captured a time, like a tumultuous time in the country and what this country was going through, but still had music as an outlet. And his voice was so uplifting, but could also be so somber at times and very raspy, very real. Like you felt like this was a dude you may have had a beer with at a bar at some point. Like, I love Fogarty, man. My dad was a huge fan. I still have a CCR T-shirt my dad got me for Christmas when I was like a teenager. So I love them. The song I'm going to pick, they had so many bangers, like a literal rogues gallery of just awesome tunes.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite songs of all time and my favorite CCR track is "Have You Ever Seen the Rain?"
Oh, that's my
beautiful song. Yeah,
nice one.
And I'm gonna pick that one for Fogarty.
Long ago, there's a calm before the storm. I know it's been coming for some time. When it's over, so they say it'll rain a sunny day. I know, shining down like water. I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain?
Man, great pick and great song. I love that track.
When he hits that, I know.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I do fucking know.
You're right. There's so many great tracks. I think my favorite still
other
is
than
probably
Lodi,
Bad Moon Rising still, but
That's a great one, yeah.
yeah.
Every Halloween playlist is on.
Lodi is probably my favorite, but Have You Ever Seen the Rain is definitely number 2.
Yeah.
Geez, I'm going to go and put on Cosmos Factory as soon as we finish here.
CCR. Yeah. Man, that's
Good
an
shit,
excellent pick. All right. My runner-up then is not going to be a surprise to any listener here. One of my favorite bands of all time is Australian band The Locksmiths, helmed by Tarly White, who I think is the best drummer-singer of all time. You can get stuffed Phil Collins. And
I'm not even going to be offended by that because
I think he's got
I'm gonna get cranky if you don't pick the right song, though.
Well, it's actually really tough, and I'm not going with a Locksmiths song, surprisingly. He also helmed a band called the Guild League, which I gave Dave very recently, and this is the song that I said to you was my introduction to them. It was actually on a compilation of Candle Records, who was their label at the time, and it's not on any of their albums, but it's a song called Bookmark. And I think that it just really highlights his voice.
A bookmark in the dark. You always fell asleep too soon, so tidy beside me. You used to neaten up my rears. Where I got up to, here's where you stopped. 2 old chairs, an odd pair. You never could sit down for long. A phone call, that was all. It's awful quiet now you're gone.
I love his voice. I think it's so sweet. He can do such a range of things, like from, really soft ballads like that. So many great pop songs written and played by the Locksmiths. What song would
pop song of the
you would have gone with T-shirt weather?
It's the greatest pop song of the decade.
So I assume you're probably not familiar with the Locksmiths. Gee, not a lot of people are, but fantastic Australian band.
I'm not, but I dug what I heard there. I mean, it's you might not like this comparison, but the first thing that came to mind was Ed Sheeran, kind of.
Okay.
Which is super popular here in the States. He is.
Actually, I haven't listened to a lot of Ed Sheeran, so all right.
Maybe Billy might play us out the T-shirt at the end of the episode.
Dave, you're number 2.
All right, number 2. Who until I had a brainwave when Leah and I were sort of talking through this, trying to get me to remember things. This was my number 1 all up until the 11th hour, and it is Ian Gillan from Deep Purple.
Nice.
Another one who is amazing, just a technically incredible voice that has so much range that he can do for everything. I mean, Deep Purple, obviously, but also the first Broadway recording of Jesus Christ Superstar, and his version of Gethsemane from that musical, I think is far and away the best. It's incredible. I'm going to go with Child in Time because obviously, and probably cue it up to about the 1 minute mark because it's a 10-minute song that's a fairly long intro.
Taking toll. If you've been bad, oh Lord, I bet you have, and you've not been hit by a flying lead. You better close your eyes. Bow your head.
Just jump to 2 minutes 50, Billy, just for the contrast, only for a few seconds.
Yeah, that's the voice I was more familiar with. I haven't heard Child in Time before.
So underrated these days, Deep Purple. To me, they're on a level with Led Zepp and other bands, and just not sort of considered in the same breath these days. But there you go, love it.
Nice. Back to
I
you,
would agree.
G.
Great pick.
Number ones.
Well, number one, I mean, you guys may know. I mean, anybody who listens to my show probably knows I did an entire episode devoted to the guy.
For this. This is why I left him off.
I mean, it was the king, Elvis Presley. That's my number one. I mean, I don't know what I could say that I haven't said. I mean, I love the guy. I grew up with that music in my house. I mean, and then learning more about him from an historical perspective and Graceland and the whole just
the mythology
that he had, and the whole just lore and the iconography around him, and I'm just such a fan and always have been. I mean, not only were the songs and the records and CDs and stuff playing in our house, but like the movies were on VHS in our house. Like, my mom had memorabilia and shit. My grandmother saw him at concert when she was young, and she had all that shit in her house. Like, it was literally an artist that was passed down generation to generation because now my son's a fan of him.
Yeah,
He's
nice.
10.
Yeah.
So I feel like Elvis is one of those artists, and the music that he created is just going to live on literally forever. Like, you won't be able to, 100 years from now, his music will still be playing somewhere.
Weirdly, I refused to get into the Beatles when I was very, very young because someone's older brother had said, there's weirdly, because normally these days you think of there's Beatles people and there's Stones people, but he said, you're either a Beatles person or an Elvis person, and this would have been back in the sort of late 70s. And I loved Elvis even at that age, and so I went, well, I'm not allowed to get in listen to this Beatles band because I'm an Elvis person. Yeah. And so I literally went about 5 years before with no interest in ever hearing a Beatles song because I thought it was either or. Weirdly, I think from memory, G, you and I had 4 out of 5 crossover in top 5 favorite Beatles songs. I remember in the chat when you did that episode. Oh yeah, very. It was.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I mean, all time greats
so
for sure.
Great.
But the just the heritage around Elvis and my childhood and growing up, and and him as an artist. I mean, the gospel influence, the soul influence, obviously. I mean, the guy, I don't know if you could say he did it individually, but he was definitely part of kind of creating that rockabilly thing, that.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got Gene Vincent's and whatever, but. If it didn't, it probably would have happened in some way without him, but it wouldn't have happened as early. It wouldn't have happened as fast, and it wouldn't have been as impactful. He was so much bigger and more impactful than anyone else that was on the landscape at the time.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's kind of the flamboyance and the kind of the myth side of his story is sort of overshadowed just how groundbreaking he was and how important he was musically before the drugs, before the movies, even before he went to war. Those first few albums, where he was, I mean, a lot of the tracks he was writing back then, you know, for the first 2-3 years, he was still writing as well. And I mean, he hit like a tornado.
Yeah, he did.
So which song are you going with, G?
I'm going to go with I decided to just go with my favorite song, because a lot of people are somewhat surprised when they hear that it's my favorite Elvis song, but I don't really know why it is either. I love it. I think because you can hear in the song, and I don't know if you can find the chorus, it's Kentucky Rain, but
it's my favorite too.
It's my favorite Elvis song because you can hear the kind of melodic gospel part with the piano and the kind of choir, and you can hear hints of that country kind of flair. And the story is beautiful because he's just trying to find this, woman that he's in love with. He's searching for her, and he's literally walking in the rain to find her. And in a time and a place, it's just, I don't know, man, it's always been my favorite Elvis song. I mean, decades, it's been my favorite.
With the rain in my shoes, searching for you in the cold Kentucky rain, in the cold Kentucky rain. Showed your photograph to some old gray bearded men sitting on a bench outside a general store. They said, yes, she's been here, but their memory wasn't clear. Was it yesterday? No, wait, the day before.
Yeah, man, that's great.
He's just telling a story, man.
Yeah.
It's like he has those moments where he's like talking, almost like he's reading from a book or something.
Yeah.
And then he'll burst into his, just electric song. And like, I love his whole catalog. I celebrate the guy. I mean, my wife is even a huge fan. When we got together, we didn't know that each of us were huge, like, super fans.
Yeah.
And we found out, like, oh, you're a super fan of Elvis, so am I. She had we still have it in a box in here in my garage, but she has fucking dolls. Elvis action figures with the gold suit and all that shit.
Yeah.
That were given her as presents or whatever. We're just huge fans, and
that's awesome.
There was my number one was locked in immediately when we nailed it down to male perspective. I mean, there was no way. So
yeah,
Elvis for me.
Well, mine was much the same. As soon as we narrowed it down to males, mine was locked in. Again, it's not unlike Elvis, who actually does have a fantastic voice. This isn't a singer that most people would think of when they think of great voices, but I think he's one of the greatest songwriters of all time. He's the world's most lovable goth. I'm, of course, going with Robert Smith from The Cure. I love The Cure so much. I love, again, super versatile. You listen to their career from, the late 70s through to today. They've got some absolute pop classics. They've got some really deep, dark goth stuff. Before I play a song, I have to play this clip of when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And he's
freaking out. I'm freaking out. This is kind of a really big deal for me. Congratulations, The Cure Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees 2019. Are you as excited as I am?
By the sounds of it, no.
He's just the absolute best human of all time. I love him so much.
I've seen that clip. It's fucking hilarious.
I really struggled with what song to play because, like I said, they do have, such versatility and range. But I am going with what I think is probably my favorite song of theirs, which is one of their more goth songs. It's from the album Wish, and it's From the Edge of the Deep Green Sea. Oh man, I could not love Robert Smith more.
I want to tell you, Billy, the album Disintegration, changed me, dude. Like I can remember listening to the cassette tape on my Walkman on the school bus for months straight. Like,
yep,
side A, side B, not skipping a song.
Yep.
Like cover to cover is still one of my favorite albums of all time. Fascination Street is probably my favorite song ever.
Yep, yeah.
And I don't know how Dave's gonna feel about that. I don't know if he knows that about me, but that's probably my number one song of all time. Period.
So
any genre, any artist.
Our rule on the show here is when we give each other albums that we deem perfect, it has to be something the other person's not familiar with. So I had not given Dave any of The Cure. You know, we're now 40 episodes in, and I was like, nah, he's got to know The Cure. I found out about a month ago he'd never listened to Disintegration, so I gave it to him on the show, and he loved it. Of course,
Yeah.
I think it's the
I gave it
highest
9 out of 10. I did.
Yeah.
I thought it was good
because it is literally it's the definition of a perfect album.
I love it.
But I mean, I feel that way about so much of The Cure. I think one of their most underrated albums is 1996's Wild Mood Swings, which is really very underplayed, but it's got some fantastic songs on it. But so yeah, Robert Smith
they're all timers, man.
Yeah.
All timers, great pick.
All right, your number one, Dave.
All right. This is probably the most left field. But as soon as I thought of him, I thought if I could have any singing voice in history, I would want this guy's voice. My life would be very different. I would have had so many women. And I'm talking about Chris Isaac.
Yep.
He's on my honorable mentions.
When very early on, I went, well, I can't have Elvis because I know it'll be Gerald's number one. I went, I can have a different rockabilly though.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't even know what song to pick.
Well, you got to go with Ross and Rachel's song from Friends.
Maybe
of
did
course.
a bad thing, but I'm going to go with Wicked Game. So you can cue it up, Billy. But but his voice is when I hear him sing, it's hard to believe it's actually a living human because it's like someone sat down and went, "What's the sexiest voice you can create?"
Strange what desire will make foolish people do. I never dreamed that I'd meet somebody like you, and I never dreamed that I'd lose somebody like you. No, I don't wanna fall in love. No, I don't wanna fall in love with you.
Absolutely,
The entire
can't fault that
listenership
pick.
just got rather moist.
Can't fault that pick at all.
It was also featured in David Lynch's Wild at Heart with Nick Cage and Laura Dern, and
I think that's where I first came across him as a singer. Was
man.
in the soundtrack to that probably.
Yeah.
So fucking good, dude. Such a good. Somebody's Crying is one of my favorite.
Oh yes,
of his too. Good stuff, man.
Excellent. All right, well, let's run through some honorable mentions.
It's a few people that should have got mentioned. And I think some of them are because we were thinking the other person is going to pick it, and then the other person was thinking, well, I won't pick that because someone will pick it.
I mean, my first two honorable mentions, Bob Dylan, who I thought G was talking about with Lennon Cohen. The other one who was immediately the top of my head was Morrissey from the Smiths, who I didn't even think of him. Well, I took him off because I just assumed that you would take him, Dave. And I was like, well, I don't need to worry about Morrissey then. Ben Folds, I love Ben Folds' voice. I think he's fantastic.
He's from around here. He actually lives really close to me.
Oh, nice. Wow. He's just an awesome dude. I love his voice. Tom DeLonge from Blink-182. Again, just a super unique, interesting. He's just that California punk accent that comes through in his vocals. I love it.
We've just saved Dan Brennick from unsubscribing. So that's good.
I'll give three.
He'll be happy.
I'll give three more. Rhett Miller from the old 97s, one of my favorite country singers. John Darnielle from the Mountain Goats, and finally Tim Timebomb, who is also the lead singer of Rancid. I love his voice.
That's the weird fucking. I don't know if you've heard his solo stuff, Gerald. Billy gave me this album, and it's really good. I loved it, but it's not punk at all.
Yeah.
And got to the end and we're doing the episode. He was like, "Oh, by the way, this is the lead singer of Rancid."
I know what.
Dave, why don't you give us some honorable mentions?
Alrighty. If I didn't have Ian Gillan, I was going to have Ronnie James Dio in there. Particularly his time with Rishi Blackmore's Rainbow. His voice is fucking amazing. Hometown boy Jimmy Barnes was very close to being included. Roy Orbison, Willie Nelson, another gorgeous voice.
Yeah.
One that I left off because I just assumed Gerald would have him was Axl Rose.
No, he's on my list, but not 5.
Neil Young, beautiful voice. Technically a great voice, but style-wise, probably not in my favorites, would be Mike Patton. I mean, the guy's got like 9-octave range or something. Fucking ridiculous. Artie Garfunkel.
Yeah.
Israel Kamakawale.
Yeah.
Probably butchered that, but there you go. A guy who's not hugely popular, but band Misfits is well known. Glenn Danzig. His voice is fucking powerful as shit. And the only other one that I had, which I almost put in just to be kind of weird, is Paul Robeson, who was a very early social activist and famous for the song Old Man River that he did in Showboat, I think it was.
Nice. Gerald, why don't you take us home with your...
Yeah, amusing to me. I have a pretty long list here, and you guys only said a couple of them, which is kind of surprising to me. I'll just run through them and see what you guys think. But I got Frank Sinatra on here.
Oh, yeah, classic. Yep.
Come on, dude. Chris Cornell. I mean, Soundgarden, and just the raspiness and the anger, the angst kind of coming through there. Bob Seger, which was another Southern rock artist that my dad introduced me to at a pretty young age.
Silver Bullet Band? Is that?
Yes. Yeah, Silver Bullet Band, yeah. A couple others in that kind of Motown era, but not as good as Otis, in my opinion. Al Green and Marvin Gaye I had on here.
That were the other two that I was referring to. I prefer Otis too.
Surprisingly, nobody said Freddie Mercury.
I skipped. I didn't read all of my honorables. He was in there.
If I'd run this list past my wife, he absolutely would have been there. She loves,
I had Jack White from the White Stripes.
Good
call.
Solo fame as well. Elton John. David Bowie. Steve Perry. Of course, the lead singer of Journey, had a pretty good solo career as well. I'm a big fan of Jimmy Buffett. I know he's not like a classically trained singer or whatever, but it's just feel good too.
Margaritaville, baby.
Yeah, dude. And then a little quick shout out. He passed away last year. Rest in peace. But rose to prominence in the 80s and really does have a really fucking killer voice, and that's Eddie Money. If you guys don't know any Eddie Money tracks.
I know the name, but I can't think of a song off the top of my head.
Take Me Home Tonight is probably his most popular. But 2 Tickets to Paradise.
Oh, okay. Of course. Yeah, right.
So Eddie Money I love too, so.
Nice. All right. Well, finally, we did. I was very, very, very late this week. I put it up pretty much mere hours before recording, so not many shout outs from the Facebook listener community. But Smaley Samani said Matt Johnson from The guy is super talented. Listen to Out of the Blue, Into the Fire from the Infected album. And Shane Jaspreeza, he gave a few. He said Dave Grohl, Dave Gleason, Doc Neeson, Billy Joel, and Kurt Cobain. So.
Yeah, I thought about Kurt.
Yeah. All right.
Doc Neeson's a nice call too.
Yeah. Gerald, thank you so much for joining us here on The Hunt for the Perfect Album. This has been awesome. Can't wait you to have back to count down female vocalists because I've got so many.
Let me know because that list is long.
Can you tell everybody? Can you tell everybody where they can find you? I'm sure everybody knows, but yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. You guys are the best, and big fans of both of you. You guys know that. So anytime you need me, I'll be here. Just it's 2 P's on a podcast. You can follow me on Twitter. It's 2 P's on a pod, and that's TWO spelled out. I always point people to my YouTube page because the podcast is also on YouTube. So just youtube.com, 2 P's on a pod. And look me up, and I do all kinds of me and my buddy Nick and sometimes special guests. We review current movies, and sometimes we dive into retro reviews as well. And then on my YouTube channel, I'll do trailer reactions and stuff like that too. So
yeah,
look me up if you're into it. But
awesome show, and these days doubly entertaining because we have to listen to you try and maintain your sanity when Nick gives his opinions on films.
Yeah. Nick, of course.
This guy gave Furiosa that Billy worked on a 5 out of 10. And I'm over here dropping dime on it, you know? So, yeah, that's what I have to deal with on a weekly basis.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks, everybody, for listening. If you want to get in touch with us and listen to all the rest of the shows on the Pottymouth Network, you can do that at pottymouthradio.com, or you can reach us at pottymouthradio@gmail.com. And this is a tough one. What song should we use to play out this week? What was our
T-shirt weather, because Gerald doesn't know it.
All right, let's do it. Let's play some T-shirt weather from the Locksmiths.
Hey Mike, you busy? All this sunshine's making me dizzy. When outside, all my clothes dry, and if I'm babbling, please forgive me. But it's the first hint of sunshine for a week or so, I'd say. I'm keeping well, I'm in good health, but I sneeze when I look into the sun today. There's my bike, looking dusty. The spokes are broken and rusty, but I'm happy to walk, I'm happy with anything today. And I'm out in the sunshine while my friends at home asleep. I guess that's just the downside to the money he makes in the house he keeps. And I say, hey, it's a beautiful day, and I'm starting to feel a lot better. So wake up, T-shirt weather.